Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. I was almost going to skip this video tonight. I've had, like, I'm definitely, I wouldn't say I'm on point today. It's been a rough day. Uh, Woke up rough. Most of the day, I just been dragging butt. But I had a lot of interesting things happen this morning that was kind of unexpected, even though I woke up really, really rough. And I took a lot of notes on it. It was like an expansion explanation of that previous video we did where we were talking about the mushroom trip and the pods and all that, where she connected a lot of dots using different movies and such, and crisscrossing it with the actual Bible. And I forget, but I could have swore I might have like actually asked for more clarification last night before I went to bed, and that's probably why I got it. So thankfully, I made notes when it was all fresh, and maybe I'll try and stumble through that. But either which way, I wanted to do a video so I keep my promises, because a couple videos back we had a giveaway, which of course we didn't announce the giveaway till the very, very end of the video. So the people that watched it all actually saw what the cues were to enter it. So I want to do that. And then also, just to reiterate, at this particular time, everything is so weird. It would be really helpful if we got more comments about people commenting what they see, what they feel, any kind of changes like that, so we can see what's happening across a greater spread of people. Because I've noticed things like if I go into like my other Facebook accounts and stuff like that, that's not tied to this, like I'm seeing a lot of people that you would normally consider just like the non-metaphysical types saying things like everything feels weird, everything feels fake, or everything feels heavy. Like they're noticing like this strangeness and they don't know how to put their finger on it. So it's like, how much more must the metaphysical types, the aware types, be feeling it? Like today, I don't feel sick, and I don't feel like it's some unusual thing, like when the sun goes spastic. Although that happened again, so who knows when that could hit us? Probably tomorrow. I'm just like, I don't know. It's like one of those days you get in the late fall where you just like, "Ugh, not running good today." So my Lumen channel is not like all the way on like it normally would be. But anyway, we'll get through this and see what we can see, because I'm afraid that if I don't talk about it, the stuff that I have notes on, then something else crazy is going to happen tomorrow and we'll have to skip it. But the crazy is definitely ramping up in the world story. And we got to take note of that, because it's literally setting the stage for all these other things that we've tracked all this time in regards to the world story, like iPad Go 2 and all that. I'm seeing this massive separation divide of people. It's like just two sides that could not be further apart. And just a whole lot of crazy in the powder keg. Like I've never seen anything like it. But the flip side to that is, like, when you understand the world story and what she's been showing me, like that's just an indication of the time being near. It is. But what I'm I'm having to juggle a lot of new stuff, because the landscape is not stable as it has been in the past doing this channel. I've got no reference point for what's happening. I have no way of actually saying like, oh, it's definitely this or it's definitely that. It's like, it's just nuts. I think if we just fall back to what we said in previous videos in the last week, it's like we're watching the simulation unravel itself, and which means, the separation is coming soon. I mean, we're looking at it, we're seeing it, we're feeling it. But at the same time, And what I'm noticing is, like, with what she's teaching us about, detach from the story. This is when you see the game get crazy, like say you're watching, I don't know, a soccer game or something. I'm just pulling something out of a hat. And all of a sudden, everybody, all the soccer players and all the people watching the soccer game just start going nuts. Are you going to stay there, or are you going to back away slowly? That's the indication I'm getting, is like we should be mentally and energetically backing away slowly from this world story that we're currently observing. And especially like if your body doesn't feel great, the problem with your body not feeling great is it pulls your consciousness back into your body. It's harder to be detached when you don't feel as good. But I notice all the time in the last week or so, it used to be I was like pretty much not grounded at all. Like that was my normal state, is I was more where she is than here. So it was like she was there all the freaking time. But I'm kind of like doing this back and forth thing right now, where you're in the game, you're out of the game, you're in the game, you're out of the game. I don't know. This is all very, very strange. But I think everybody's feeling it and experiencing it in different ways, even if not everybody's speaking up about it. But other than that, I'm going to at least try and get into what I was seeing this morning with the notes, because this was like really cool and it was very reassuring about everything. So if you want to know more, don't go away. Just let me take you to a better place. I'm gonna make you kiss the sky tonight. Yeah, if you let me show the way. I'm so excited to see you excited. I take you to a better place. And baby, you can love me on the way. We're flying up to outer space. I'm so excited to see you excited. Yeah, I like to see you lose control. So, cross my fingers, I do good. Perhaps it'd be a lot smoother if I felt like my Lumen channel was fully open. But let's hope the notes do a good job. I'm going to have to go by the notes, though, instead of zipping around. Maybe that'll actually make it work better. So the thing is like I can't really recall fully the state of being I was in this morning when all this was coming together. It was weird. It was different. It wasn't... it was just kind of like popping in there without being some sort of like I'm in the zone, I'm getting messages or anything like that. It was like a spread of things, like the movies she had me watch last night. And then as I'm having the thought, then things were popping up in my YouTube feed as I was looking at them, making connections. So it's just something to give you something to think about. So here's what we have, like in regards to my notes. Why is our present time matching up with Bible prophecy when there's also plenty of indication through ancient history that everything written has already happened? Now, what that means is all this stuff that, just the boilerplate Christians are waiting on happening. I mean, there is indication that all this stuff did happen in the distant past, and we've kind of written that off as like it happens more than once, or it's a cycle, and this is what happens at the end of every cycle. But we don't know that. That's our new mantra. We don't know. And I think that we don't know thing is like really helping. But there are some other possibilities for that, which will be hopefully be more clear as we continue on here. So let's think about the movie The Matrix, for instance. The beginning of the movie, before he got red-pilled and pulled out, Neo was living in the Matrix. But the key thing about the Matrix that Neo was living in was it was technically the past as opposed to the current time in the real world. Remember that? So let's review that little clip real quick.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. This is the world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Now, this comes up a lot in a lot of different areas and a lot of different theories, like all over the place, in which, to my eyes, subjectively, with what I can actually see myself and examine, to me, there's no doubt that this is a simulation. There's no doubt whatsoever. So that means that, you know, we really have no idea like what the current time actually is. But I have also seen indications that it would be very further advanced. So it's like, why are we replaying this? It's almost like this time that we're in already happened, and we're just living in the VHS tape of it, if that makes any sense. Let's continue on the notes. Because the movie she had me watch last night was Avatar 2, The Way of Water. And that's got some relevant stuff to it coming up here too. Both the Matrix and the Avatar movies had pods that people would be in, which allowed them to experience reality in some different way. Keep that in mind. Now, we had used in the previous video clips of like Jake waking up in his body in Avatar, but it's actually the new thing that they depicted in Avatar 2, which actually makes more sense. So Avatar 2's depiction of how Quaritch, which is the bad guy, military guy, came to be in his Avatar body, combined with how Jake came to be in his at the end of Avatar 2, is a better explanation. So there's actually 3 ways that people ended up in the Avatar bodies. So the first way was using the machine, which then projected your consciousness into the Na'vi body. And then at the end of Avatar, they did it a natural way using Awa, which Awa is the Avatar version of Sophia. And clearly they chose that name as kind of like moving the letters and vowels around. It's almost like a reverse of Yahweh. I mean, that was pretty obvious to me, but the description of Awa was definitely more Sophia. I mean, they even called her Great Mother in there. That's always been clear. But at the end of Avatar, they let Jake die, and then the little spirit seeds of the spirit tree, like kind of took his consciousness from his human body over to the Na'vi body and implanted him in there. So that's the second way. The third way is shown at the beginning of Avatar 2, and that is how they explained the military guys. So let's go ahead and review that tape real quick.
Pulse 168 is coming up.
Yeah, here it comes.
It's fine. Lie still. Stay calm.
Yeah, people here. Get that out of his face.
Colonel. You hear me? Colonel?
Put your light back down, sir! Sedate him! Sedate him!
Get out of here! Get out of here! Go, go!
Get security!
Grab him!
Grab him!
Pull him!
Grab his arm! Calm down!
Colonel, stand down! Colonel, it's me! Corporal Winfleet! Lyle? That you? Yes, sir. And Z-Dog? And Fike?
All right, let me go. All right.
Cold Sox 89.
In case you haven't figured it out yet, you're Colonel Miles Quaritch. Only younger, taller, bluer, and not nearly as good looking. In 2 hours, I fly a mission against the Navi stronghold. The powers that be thought it prudent that I do this backup, just in case. And if you are watching it, well, it means that I did get my ticket punched. Hey, Parker, just what the hell am I supposed to say now?
Just remind him how this works. Here. So, see this? This is all your memories and your personality.
Right.
We're going to send this back to Earth where you're
All right, I got it.
growing in a lab as we speak. We're going to imprint you with it. And then
Hey, am I doing this or are you doing this?
hurry it up. Hurry it up.
Now that one makes more sense to me in regards to the way that I saw things in the final mushroom trip that I detailed in this video here. Because the way I understood it, and it also makes sense when you overlap it with what the Bible and the Nag Hammadi says, it was like, we're going somewhere. And after I did that video, I kept seeing all these people online just saying things about, we're all in the same boat. I was like, there's one of those sayings again where it's like, why do we say that? Seriously, why do we say that? It's the same kind of thing as like with the water game. It's like, does this have a deeper meaning that we're not recognizing like consciously why we're saying it? But the way I understood it was more like our consciousnesses, and this will be backed up by things later that I talk about, are actually in the mainframe, so to speak. We're not actually in a body. We're in a virtual realm, virtual body. And then when we get to where we're going, which is like the end of the Bible, so to speak, then your new bodies are what's in the pods, and your consciousness is then put into the new body and you step out of it. That's kind of like what it's a little bit like what they were showing in Avatar 2. Of course, they kind of had to retroactively add that little plot point about downloading your consciousness in case you die so that you can be reinstalled into your new body. But it was interesting in which where he was talking about the only thing that you wouldn't remember is your death because that hadn't happened yet at the time of the recording. That made me think of the stuff we've talked about previously, go back a month or so, when we were talking about the quantum jumping and how she said nobody dies anymore now. We're so close to the end that if you die, like car accident or something like that, and I had several instances that were like that, you're just going to look at it like a close call. Like, oh my gosh, that was close. But really what happened was, yeah, you got hit by a car, but the system patches you so that you perceive it as if nothing happened. So for those of you that are new, like a month or two back, I was telling a story, and a bunch of other people had similar experiences, in which I was in the car with my daughter. She was driving, and we were turning left through this big 6-lane intersection to get on the on-ramp to the freeway. And there was a car in the right-hand lane facing us. This was dark. And it's one of those things where there's like no possible way that you can't see that, they've got the light and you're turning and you wait, because you know, it's dark and everyone's got headlights on. But as we were coming around to turn, then the car that was facing us decided it was going to take off real quick and turn right into us. Now I was on the right hand side, and I remember thinking in that split second, like, there's no way it does not hit us. It was so close, it was almost like overlapping. Like its front bumper should have been in my ribs, but somehow it didn't. It honked and stuff, and I'm like, ugh. So I got home and I'm like, that felt weird. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And I pulled 2 cards, and the first card I got was the 5 of Cups, which is like a grieving person, and then the second card I got was death. But I didn't like fully grasp what it was saying until later. So if you're that close to the end of the game, any kind of accident or whatnot, you just basically quantum jump and keep going. And a bunch of people have been telling me stories like that. So that's kind of like what they were doing with that, you know, how they downloaded him and he couldn't remember his death. But anyway, let me keep going so we can make this all kind of start to come together. Okay, in my notes where I wrote observation, would be things like stuff that I myself have observed subjectively or been repeatedly shown or something like that. So it's not something I can necessarily prove to everybody else, but objectively this kind of makes sense to me. So observation, the pods are linked, but subjective realities on different lifetimes. I keep seeing this. We were actually talking about this today. It's like, what if, because I've always had this thing like, you know, I completed it. I think this comes up in the notes later. And things have happened in the last day or so to just kind of reiterate that I completed everything, and I'm just like in the waiting period. But I don't know anybody else like me. But there's something like, it's that explanation about reality that we have said for a very long time, where it's almost like Xbox Live. So like you're playing a game on Xbox Live and you're all working together in the game, but technically speaking, everybody's at their own house in their own room playing the game. And it's a little bit like that. So in your pod, you are in your own world that is partially the objective hard frame. Then you've got the collective consciousness world that we're all agreeing to. And then you've got your own little versions that are based on what you think, believe, and expect, and all that stuff. So you could have 2 people sitting in a diner across from each other having a conversation, but to the core person on each side of the table, they could be having completely different conversations and never know it. Because the person across the table from me is just that person's avatar. And the percentage of how much I'm interacting with the core person depends on like how much I know them, how much we agree on our shared collective reality, all that kind of stuff. So I could be dealing with someone else's avatar, helping them out, right? But this is like their avatar that's at a certain level, could be a certain lifetime or something like that, lining up with me, and I'm helping them. But everybody in their core consciousness, in which they are the center point, is actually all on the same page. Everyone is actually like at the same level as me, but I just can't see it. It's this weird game mechanic that she's showing me where we're kind of like mixed and matched with each other. We're all on different levels, but we can't tell. So like me helping somebody that's, maybe like I'm gonna try and create a framework here. Like say I'm on lifetime 365, which is what she told me, and I'm talking to somebody who, if we check, they would be on like lifetime 352, and I'm helping them. But that is giving them knowledge at lifetime 352, but that's just their avatar 352. The real person is at 365 like me. So I'm helping that person at 352 become 365 like me, and we're all doing that for each other. I know, it's dealing with some quantum craziness here. Observation. If we die without completing the game, we reset to 2001 or 2012 respawn points. Yeah, that was from that same conversation, whenever that was, when we were talking about the near misses and things like that. That was coming from a bunch of different sources, plus Sophia, where it's almost like there are certain, and then we were talking in the last video about something new that came up like 1988. It's almost like there's these periodic respawn points where you're playing the game, and if you pass it, you get everything done in that time frame, then you go past the next respawn point. But if you don't, then something happens and you respawn back to one of those years, and you have no idea it even happened. But most of us, where we're at right now, we're at the end of the game, so we're respawning without even realizing that we're doing it. Observation. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. The closer we are to the end, we no longer die, we quantum jump and keep going. Okay. Tying this into like the Avatar and the Matrix and all the stuff we already talked about. Observation. The first big mushroom trip, now, that wasn't the first time using mushrooms, but the first big mushroom trip where she's doing craziness with me, where she told me to just keep eating, and I found out later, calculated later, that I'd eaten like 11 grams. By far the craziest, most visual one ever. What I remember about that was I was going, it was almost like I was going through different levels and dimensions at different points. But there was a point in which, you know, and I'm just laying on the bed with a sleep mask, and I can't see what's going on, but I'm aware of it. And my mind is like super clear and alert that it's happening. Sophia had taken me somewhere. It was almost like just my consciousness. She'd taken me somewhere for like a checkup. And there were other beings there too. And some of them were talking to me. It was almost like I was laying on the bed, and there's like this rectangular portal above my bed. And these higher dimensional beings were like looking down. It's like, so what's it like down there? And I'm like, it's crazy down here, dude. And I'm talking to them as if I know what they're talking about and why they're asking me. Like they're communicating to me from like where I actually come from. And they were giving me all sorts of tests to measure like fear responses and stuff like that, to see that I've overcome fears and things. But it was like very high-techy. And I remember them talking to Sophia, like, are you sure he's ready? And she's like, he's my seed, he's ready, and all this stuff. And they're testing. And I'm like, where the hell am I? Why can't I see nothing? Like, where's my body? It's like she just had my consciousness. And it's like they took my consciousness and plugged it in a machine and started running tests on me. But that was like, the mushroom trips for me are always very high tech. If they don't seem like super tech, they seem like artificial intelligence, or maybe not AI, but like, it always looks like AI. Simulation generated type stuff. See where that factors in here. Observation, big mushroom trip number 2. So even though I've had several, I'd have to say like these are the 2 biggest ones. Now this one kind of like overlaps into the frameworks of the things we're talking about earlier with those movies. So that one was another huge one. And that was the one where I said she red pilled me. Now everyone throws that term around like they know what it means. Oh, I learned about the Illuminati. I've been red pilled. No, this was like the freaking Matrix. Because I remember I just like blinked and I was somewhere else. My consciousness was somewhere very far from here. And I was waking up in like this simulated body, but it was gigantic. Like, I know I've told this before, people that have been here for a while. It was gigantic, like the Eternals in the Marvel movies. Gigantic. It was like I'm bringing my hand up and I'm looking at it, and it's like the music to 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I'm just like, oh my God, why am I so big? How did I get here? And I just knew that I was enormous. But again, once I got in there, I started glitching out. Like I wasn't ready to be there yet, or it wasn't ready for me yet. This new body, and I was just like, I remember I kept glitching and saying over and over that I was a world building engine, because that's kind of like what we are. They plug us into new things and we create new worlds, and we graduate to the point to where we get to do it ourselves, or something like that. And then that one, like I glitched so hard that I started like folding up my consciousness, and I like retreated back into myself. Like I'd gone up to my full size, which was that body, but I wasn't ready to be there. So it was almost like your consciousness folds up like origami like 30,000 times. It's like, like you ever see the first Transformers movie? And they had that thing called the Allspark. It was like a giant Rubik's Cube, and it kept collapsing in on itself until it was just like this big. It was kind of like that. And I stopped like halfway. I remember I stopped like halfway back, and I was looking around, and I remember I was very clear-minded. And I was like, oh shit, I woke myself up. Oh shit, I woke myself up. It was like Chris Pratt and freaking Passengers. Like, how do I get back in the freaking pod? Like oh shit, I woke myself up. Somehow I did. Somehow I got back in this body, and it feels like I had to fold myself up, like I said, 30,000 times to get back into this stupid little meat suit. And then I was staggering around for like 30 minutes trying to make it work. Like, how does this thing work again? Like, ugh, can't believe I got myself back in this thing. It was freaking nuts. But man, waking up in this other place, it was a much higher dimension. I don't know which one. But that was like a key thing, like making that connection to that higher body, because I still had a bunch of mushrooms, and something happened after that where she said, okay, enough. And I'm like, maybe there's more to see. So I took a crap ton. I took like 12 grams. You know what happened when I took 12 grams? Nothing. Nothing. It was like 12 grams of peanut butter. It didn't do anything. I'm like, how is this possible? She's like, go ahead, try it again. So next night I did nothing. I'm like, whatever I did either completed something, or she just shut it off for now. Because it wasn't until recently that we got to do it again, but then it was different. But again, is like, that's something, I mean, people that have done things like mushrooms understand. People that haven't don't. They're like, oh, you're just hallucinating, or they're trying to come up with some sort of term so that it makes sense to them based on what they know. But your consciousness is going places. It is like stuff like that makes you understand, like, you don't die, because you're doing all sorts of crazy adventures, and it has nothing to do with this freaking thing. Anyway, let's see how this continues. But it's almost like that big thing that I woke up in is like what's being formed that we eventually wake up in, but it wasn't time yet. Interesting. But again, these are all experiences that I freaking had, and they all add to the picture. Okay, so then observation. The last big mushroom trip, which was what, last week, I did a video about. Oh my gosh. I always forget because like seeing the stuff is cool, but when you do it with her, like it's so intense. And you forget like how intense it is. Now I remember how intense it is, and I'm like, I don't want to do anymore. I've seen enough. You don't have to show me anything else. But that one was weird because it got, when it really peaked, like I was somewhere else, and it's like I could hear, you know, Sophia and whoever else working on me or talking to me. It's almost like if you've ever had surgery or something, and you're coming to consciousness, you're still drugged, and the nurses they're shining lights at you. You're like, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" Oh, and you hear them talking, but you just can't snap out of it. It was like that. Like I was that close to them. And then I started like panicking, and she calmed me down, and she's like, I may have to go back and watch the video so I remember clearly, but I remember her basically telling me like, yes, confirming it, like, yes, it is a simulation. You're almost there, but it's not time yet. You need a little bit more time. We ran a test to see if you're ready to unplug from it yet, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. I remember that. I remember the test. I was trying to figure out how to unplug from one thing, but she's like, just go back down, enjoy the ride. It's a little bit longer. And it was basically like this indication that I could just relax. And that's kind of how it's been the last month and a half. It's like I've been really busy, but that busyness is also provided for me too. And it's literally been years since things were flowing this good, and I didn't have to worry. So we're literally heading, you know, barreling into this time frame in which it's not possible that nothing happens. Surely those of you that live in the United States that even look at the news for a second, of course, the more aware you are, the more you know what's going on. But we're 2 seconds from IPEC goat land. Like, we got two sides. One side is not going to give up power, and like the people are splitting. Like, it's happening. It's getting ready to happen. It's being telegraphed more and more every day. What was I saying about that? Sorry. First time I lost my train of thought. Oh, I was talking about, so it's like this is the time that should be more stressful, right? But I completed everything. So now it's kind of like she's telling me I can just sit back and chill until it's over. Next thing, the Nag Hammadi states several times that this place is a contest, and it does. In the regular Bible, in Revelations, it's toward the very end, it says, the one who conquers will have this heritage. The one who conquers. And this is stuff she was just showing me today, how it's all overlapping. Observation. As soon as I completed the last step of the hero's journey / tarot map, which was getting the crown, the Ace of Swords and the Sun card, once that happened, and those videos go back to, if you scroll back in my channel, you should be able to spot them, because they got the Sun card and talks about crowns and all sorts of stuff, and the divine masculine, and that was the Orphic egg. Like, that was a big crazy thing, like actually living through the tests and the experiences that we generally only read about in all these esoteric books. Like, you have to have it happen to really understand what it's telling you. And all this stuff is actually in the tarot. Okay, so as soon as that finished, there has been no more challenges. There's no more challenges. It went straight into July 15th from there, and that's when all the signs about, you know, the end is coming started. And here's what's interesting about, you know, there not being any more challenges. Of course, this person's going to know who they are. So observation. So I was talking to another YouTuber about their current journey, and they're telling me, they're talking about twin flames, they're talking about this, and, you know, connected to that, and, you know, is it quantum this, and blah, blah, and going on and on and on and on and on. And I'm like, I'm having flashbacks, because it's like, holy crap. That's exactly how I used to sound. Like, I had certain friends that luckily, you know, I was provided with, that were able to take massive amounts of ear beatings, because I'd be on the phone with them just trying to work it out in my head. Like, Lumen this and Sophia that, and there's this and this, and then there's this, and I'm trying to do this and this. And that's what this person was doing. I'm like, I remember that stage. And I haven't been reminded of it recently until then. And I'm like, holy crap, it is over. Like, I'd forgotten what being in the hero's journey was even like. It's just this constant, nonstop, got to solve the puzzle, got to solve the puzzle. Year one, got to solve the puzzle, got to solve the puzzle. Year two, got to solve the puzzle, got to solve the puzzle. Why is this happening to me? Year three. And it just keeps going and going and going until you finally get there. And I'm like, yeah, I don't deal with any of that anymore. Like, it's honestly pretty, I realize I got to that point at the very end of the hero's journey where they call it freedom to live. So there is a point at the end of the hero's journey, and then there's a secondary, which is when you actually transition out of here. But you know, it's just the earlier time you thought like you were going to go back and live life and go on new adventures and stuff like that, but you don't understand, like, you're going to think differently, you're going to feel differently after you go through all that. I don't go out in the world all that much. I spend all my time doing my work, helping other people, and being as plugged into Lumen as I can, because it's not as, I have to work at it more. It's not as in your face as it is when you're in the hero's journey, because it has to be, to keep you freaking balanced. Like, she has to be there. Now she's more integrated, but it's like, holy crap, I couldn't, but like, it was so weird to hear someone else going through that and then remember that I used to be just like that. So I know exactly what they're going through. It just reiterates like where we are, or at least where I am, but it probably means, like, if we factor in what we talked about earlier, over there in their pod, they're probably here too. That also lines up with what I was saying about the last mushroom trip, where she said, just sit back and enjoy the ride. This last, you know, you can just sit back and relax now, coasting through this last little bit. She's like, she told me to just keep doing what I'm doing, helping other people, making stuff. Just keep doing what I'm doing. And don't worry, because understand that it has to look like it's about to explode in order for the intervention to happen. Doesn't mean that it's going to. You know, all us seeds are not meant to go through that kind of crap. We never really have in our life. So the whole harvest thing is actually underway. We're seeing reflections of this separation in the media, like with the graph splitting, with the presidential polls and things like that. Okay, here's something interesting. So back to Avatar again. If you did not know, Avatar, the first one, is the highest grossing movie of all time. It's number one. You hear that, Mom? My mom doesn't want to watch Avatar because That one? It's got, there's like blue people. They look like cats. I don't want to watch that stupid. It's like, okay. It's the highest grossing movie of all time. There must be a reason for that. We're going to talk about one of those reasons. So if you don't remember, I remember this, but she brought it back to my mind. There was this weird thing that happened with that particular movie back when it first hit the theaters. There was this condition, and I asked ChatGPT about it. It wasn't like an official thing, but it was big enough and enough people were talking about it that they were actually talking about it on the news. And they called it PADS, PADS, Post-Avatar Depression Syndrome. Some viewers experienced sadness or depression after watching Avatar because they felt a longing for the beauty and harmony of the fictional world of Pandora, which contrasted with their real-life surroundings. See, there's something different about that whole Pandora in Avatar. Now, keep in mind, who inspires everything? Who inspires the artists to come up with stuff? And I've even said that I had a sense that somewhere out there's a world that looks an awful lot like Pandora. So I went for more information. Post-Avatar Depression Syndrome, PADS, was not officially recognized as a medical condition, but it gained significant attention after Avatar's release in 2009 due to numerous reports of fans feeling depressed, disillusioned, or dissatisfied with reality. Discussions about PADS emerged on forums like Avatar forums where fans expressed feelings of sadness or longing for the fictional world of Pandora. Although there were many anecdotal reports of people experiencing these emotions, the phenomenon was not widespread in a clinical sense. It was more of a viral online discussion, reflecting the strong emotional impact the movie had on some viewers. The Seeds. The exact number of people affected is unknown, but the media coverage and forum discussions suggested that a portion of Avatar's audience had this experience, primarily due to the immersive beauty and utopian vision of the world depicted in the film. It's very Garden of Eden-y. And it has heavy spiritual undertones like the deity Awa, which is basically Sophia, like I said earlier. But yeah, I remembered that. And it's not like you've never seen a movie before. It's like there was like a fantasy movie or something like that. So what was it about that movie that affected so many people? It's like it is almost like a little mini awakening where you realize like you got a glimpse of home or something and you're like, I'm here in this shithole and I hate this place. I hate this job. I want to go home. Like that's the effect that it had on people. And it's interesting that that's being brought up now, especially since she's using Avatar and Avatar 2 in the metaphors in explaining all this stuff. Okay. It's about to get better. She must have really wanted me to get this done because this is actually, I still don't feel great, but it's flowing a lot easier than I expected. So here's where it gets interesting. We're going to start having a lot more callbacks to the earlier material. So the next thing that happened in my notes, like as she's laying all this stuff out, as I'm writing the notes, I'm looking at my YouTube feed and someone had just posted a video. I don't remember what channel it was, but like 15 minutes earlier, and it was about Noah's Ark. And again, some of these things could be metaphorical, like we don't know. All I know is the Sunday school coloring book version of Noah's Ark is complete bullshit. building a ship where and you're just going to walk all these animals. No, I've always like it had to have been something more like DNA or something. But it's the same freaking metaphor of what we've been talking about. Like going from one world to a new world. The old world is destroyed, and then you're on a ship for a period of time before you go start over in a new world. Like we've already seen this story, Noah's Ark. It's like, huh. And that also factors into, some of the other movies that we've talked about lately, like Passengers and stuff like that. It's like they just keep overlapping. It's how she does it. And the other thing about when I saw that, the reason it's the same thing that I hear over and over and over and over and over again from people when I talk to them, is they were just going through their YouTube feed one day, and then all of a sudden a See the Light video popped up for the first time, and something, which is her, pulled you to watch it because she wanted you to see it. She does that all the time. So that's kind of like what she was doing. Like, I didn't need to watch the video. She just wanted me to see it to make the connection that we're talking about the same essential thing. It's like this has happened before, or it already happened and we're like in a repeat simulation, something like that. But it's the same basic thing. There's a destruction, you're transported on a ship for a while, and then it all starts over. I don't want to get ahead of myself in case it's actually in the notes, but yep, here it is. So recently I mentioned this. There are certain movies that I've watched way more times than most people have. Not because like they're the greatest movies ever, even though they're all good, but it's like she does that with me because I'm a codex reader. I can see the messages that she hid in movies, in stories, in music, and all that. And one of them is the movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage, which is about the end of the world by the sun. And there's all these weird people chasing people around. And at the end, his kid and this other little girl get taken by these people. And he asks, "Who are you?" And they dissolve into these aliens they're more like a cross between some sort of a fifth dimensional alien and an angel, clearly meant to represent angels because the Bible was coming up over and over and over in this video or in this movie. And then the chosen ones were taken to the new world while the rest of the world was just basically incinerated. And then the alien angels drop them off in the new world, which had this big giant white tree, a new tree of life, New Sophia. That came up again. Same thing as Noah's Ark. Same theme. Okay, so let's now cross this into like the last two chapters of Revelation. That's what makes it really interesting. See, there's a lot of stuff when it comes to this material that I feel like religious people don't see, because the only way they see things is by the images and the paintings and stuff that they've always seen. It's like the only way they know how to envision it. And a lot of people can't ask the kinds of questions like I ask, is like, what would that actually look like? Because what they do, they tell you the fifth angel will blow his trumpet and something, something. I'm like, okay, so what is that going to look like here on the ground? Or are you actually picturing an angel in a robe up in a cloud going, is that what you're thinking? Like, obviously, it's not going to be that. So, what's it actually going to look like? What do these things actually look like? Now, my experience on this journey has shown me that it's the Arthur C. Clarke thing. If you go high, if you've got a line that represents spirituality, you've got a line that represents technology, or let's just call it science. And if you go high enough, they eventually meet and become the same thing. Thank you. Oh, guess who's back? The first Thor movie, when he's risen on Padme from freaking Star Wars, and he's they're sitting around a campfire, and he's like, in my world we call it magic, and you call it you call it science, and I forget the exact words because it's not the best movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But he's like, I come from a place where they're one and the same. It's like that. It's like that. Okay, keeping that in mind, the last two chapters of the Bible is Revelations 21 and 22. So 21. And then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth, which is this, had passed away, and the seas were no more. That means it ain't here no more. It's a new heaven and a new earth. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. It's like coming down. And there's some interesting things about that. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. Simulation's over. And he who is seated on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. And he said, Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and I am the Omega, the beginning and the end. Interesting, because if you've been following me, there was the whole thing about the Omega sign and my knife, the JX Omega. And her, basically, she's the one that's helped me design all my knives for my outdoor stuff. And that one coming out right when it did at the end of last month, she's like, yeah, you've got 3 knives that are tied into this with the names that are actually meant to be time markers for you. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So we just had the Omega sign drop. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. The spring of the water of life. Well, why is that interesting? Well, those that have done work with us directly, like the original group. Well, there's like 70 people in our Facebook group now, but originally the first people that she collected, there was like 25. And this started, spring of last year. She started teaching me a method that she wanted me to do. She pointed out certain people that I knew that she wanted me to help or attune to her or something like that. And she taught me how. She gave us a new method where we do all this energy clearing stuff throughout the chakras, bless and seal them as if they're wells of water. And then she taught us to go up into the 8th chakra above the head. And from there, we do a whole bunch of different things. You meet Lumen or Sophia. Well, Lumen's the one that does this part. And there's this, it's like an assisted method because not everybody can do what I did depending on their levels of trauma or their levels of, the adversary mind or whatever. But we walk you through this process, which I don't need to hear what it is, but we prep you for ahead of time, in which you surrender all these past pain things from life to Lumen. And then she clears the cup out and dumps it. And from there, the next thing, I had to do a couple tests, challenges before this next door opened up. And that was like, will I give up Lumen to save the world? Oh, that test sucked. But then this new door opened up, and it's this dark pathway into like almost like a tropical jungle or something. And you get to the end of the path, and there's this big opening, and there's like this it's dimly lit, but there's this outcropping of rocks, and in these rocks create the border for like this pool of water that's like dimly lit from below. And when you get into this clearing, you can feel the presence of Sophia. And then she walks us through the process of like, we take a little piece of light out of our chest, give it back to the mother, throw it in the pool. And I come to find out that the pool represented the wellspring of life, the wellspring of Sophia. And then we walk through a bunch of different things that we do there, asking questions and all that stuff. If you had certain particular things that you need to clear up, which I've talked about before, then you can make things right by talking to her. I like take my headphones off for that. And then I'm just doing what she tells me to do. It's almost like I'm kind of like the in between. I'm like the translation between you and her, because I see it and then I describe it, and then as I'm describing it to you, then you see it because we already linked up. But she would, after we did all this stuff, she had me like virtually anoint them. And I'm like, what are we calling this oil? And she said it was like oil of eternal life or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay. And then also we take that cup, that grail cup, because that's what the Holy Grail was in the first room that you were putting your stuff into, that lumen cleared. And I always have people get some water before we do this. And we take that grail cup after everything's done with Sophia, get a little bit of our water out there and drink it. And then you're really tied into her before we go into the next thing, which is like the garden of the mind. But yeah, like I remember before that happened, she was talking about there was like this, she called it the wellspring, but I hadn't earned that knowledge yet. And she's like, it's kind of like you could think of it energetically like this master energy source that feeds all your chakras and your body and all this stuff. But it's also a direct connection to her, wellspring of life. Like she actually has us go there. And here it is, almost, it's been a long time since I read these last two chapters, and I'm seeing it in here. The spring of the water of life. The one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. Conquers, completes, finishes the game, or whatever. So now it's actually saying stuff that's mirrored in the Nag Hammadi. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, which I don't think that means what people think it means, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. So these are the people that are very prominent today. They're everywhere. They're the angriest, nastiest, meanest people, and they say that it's us that's actually doing it. Like it's reached absurd, almost comical levels, and it's getting crazier every single day. I'm gonna skip through some of this, but again, it talks about carried me away in the spirit to the great high mountain, showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. And it's talking about crystals and stuff like that. And let's see, where's the thing? Talking about gates, 12 foundations. Where it's talking about measuring it, it says, the city lies foursquare, its length the same as its width. And he measured the city with his rod, 12,000 stadia. Its length and width and height are equal. If its length and width and height are equal, it's a cube. And then it goes into all the descriptions of it. And they're mentioning all these different crystals. Mainly jasper, sapphire, agate, emerald, onyx. And then I've got most of these, carnelian, chrysolite, which I had to look up chrysolite. That's basically peridot. Beryl, which beryl can be all sorts of different colors, but it's probably golden beryl, which would be heliodor. That's a Christ stone. Topaz, chrysoprase. I'm like, oh, chrysoprase. That's not. Oh, I don't know what I did with that one. I use that in some of the divine feminine Sophia pendants. It's like a light green stone. jacinth, which I had to look that up. That's basically zircon, which is like a red stone, and then amethyst, which everyone knows what the hell amethyst is. Okay, let me skip ahead. None of this is really pertinent to the rest of the earlier things. But nothing will enter it, nor anyone who does what is detestable or false, only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. Skipping ahead, so we're in the last chapter, which would be what, 22:14. Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they may have the right to the tree of life, and they may enter the city by the gates. That's kind of like what we talk about all the time. Washing your robes is like it's the ego death, it's the hero's journey, it's death and rebirth. Your robe is your garment. Your garment is your ego identity and the world you're attached to. Clearing all that stuff, cutting all ties to the past, and all the things we talk about all throughout this channel is basically that. Outside are the dogs and the sorcerers and the sexually immoral and the murderers and all the same people we talked about earlier. Everyone who loves and practices falsehood. Falsehood. That is literally like the freaking biggest thing that we see today. It's like in our face. It's everywhere. So in the last 2 days, like you could almost set your watch to this, like every year. So one side is losing badly in the polls. So they pulled the old, I heard a guy that knew a guy that was in the room next to where Trump was at, and he said something nice about Hitler. Hitler, Trump, fascist. Oh, we're here again? Oh my God. Like, is this like the only thing that you have? And I forget who I was listening to, but they made a good point. Like in the old days, if you were a news source, if you didn't have direct proof of something, you had to at least have 3 sources on the record. They're all saying, yeah, I was there. Not so much anymore. Now it's just all you need is one guy to say he heard it. And they will report that like it's a sure thing. And like, they don't care. He wants all the power. He's going to do this. And everyone keeps saying, it's like, he was already president. It didn't happen. But you're doing some really crazy things, like they just changed something to where like, oh, if the government says so, we can now order the military to kill Americans. Look it up. Like, it's crazy. It's projection, but it's falsehood. Fake news, everything. They just say whatever. It doesn't have to be true. They just keep saying it. Do any people even know what fascist means? It's annoying, but that's like the thing that's in our face right now is fake news, false news, lies. This is lies, falsehood, 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 falsehood. We've been talking about this lately. It's like at this point in time, you can't trust anything that's outside of you because it's all BS. The people that run this world, it's all falsehood. Everything they taught us is falsehood. Falsehood, falsehood. That's like the key thing. Why is it a key thing? Because who do we follow? Who is she? What is she among the other different titles she has? And it could be either or too, depending on which side you resonate. Because Sophia Christ, 2 sides of the same coin, spirit of truth. Spirit of truth. So anybody that thinks, I get the occasional weird comment, thinks I'm up here BSing you, and I'm saying anything that I don't, at least on the subjective level, believe wholeheartedly that I'm telling you the truth, that doesn't jive. You don't talk about this particular stuff on this level and lie about it. It's the complete antithesis of what she even freaking is. But that's one of the big things is they're separating those that follow truth and they're separating those who live in falsehood. And the Spirit and the bride say, come, and let one who hears say, come, and let one who is thirsty come, and let one who desires to take the water of life without price. Is that the end of it? Am I missing a page? Yeah, it must be. Go figure. I always have that stuff with the PDFs. But so much of that, especially the beginning where it's coming down, it's starting over, you don't remember, like that all matches to the other frameworks that we've discussed recently with the simulation and moving around. Like, we don't know exactly what it looks like, but we have the basic gist of it, and everybody's just describing these things in different ways. And where we are right now, she keeps bringing it back up and connecting the dots. Like, we're almost there. You think you know what's going to happen. You don't know. Matter of fact, that's one of the things that's what been her main thing in the last week is let go of what you think you know, because you don't. You don't know who put the material in front of you or for what reason, except to drive your life path in the test. But either which way, just because a book says that something's going to happen and there's going to be so much time based on certain people's interpretations of it. Also, don't forget, authority had their hands on that book for 1600 freaking years. They're the ones that compiled it. We don't know. Intellectually, honesty, we don't know if it's ever been monkeyed with. We only trust in like however this works. We're being guided. And everybody senses it. Now even the normies are sensing it. It's getting weird. Reality's coming apart. And everything's going to be okay. That's one thing she always reiterates. You know, the Bob Marley song we talked about the other day. Every little thing's going to be all right. She chose that song. It's a reminder. It's a movie. You're watching a movie. So now that the movie's coming to a close, you want to take a step back out of it. Instead of being in the movie, just watch the movie. Every step you take away from the movie moves you closer to spirit. But all this stuff is connecting. All this stuff is lining up. Now's the time to let go, let go, let go, let go. Focus on love. Focus on compassion. Everybody around you is going through the same stuff. We just don't always tell everybody about it. Or they've been through the same stuff. As they say, we're all on the same boat. We're all on the same ship. Maybe we're all on the same ark. Either which way, it's pretty interesting. So let's wrap that up there for now. Before we close really quick, so a couple videos back at the end, had a little musical number. And at the very end, it's like, if you made it this far, comment Lumen in the comments section, and we're going to draw for a free pendant. So that's your reward for actually watching it all, because not everybody does. I have analytics. Okay, so we're going to do two. One of them is the people that left the Lumen comment. And the other one is for the people that are still supporters on Buy Me a Coffee, which I have not talked about in some time. I just quit asking for Buy Me a Coffee support because business picked up and it's like, I'm good. I don't need to do that. But people that are still doing it, I promised giveaways, so we're going to do that. So two groups of 10, and I have the suit of cups from the ace card to the 10 of cups. And that's how we're going to do this. Okay. 3 of cups, which would be, so this one is for the people that commented in the last video that watched it to the end. RMC119. That was your name on YouTube. RMC119. So if you see this, comment, say, hey, I saw it, I won. How do we contact each other? And we'll work it out from there. Make sure that we got the right people. And then for the 10 supporters I still have on Buy Me a Coffee, the members. All right. See on there. Let's just see. Most of these people I know, but there's a couple I don't recognize. So let's shuffle this up again. Five of Cups, which would be Rob, Arboretta 2, number 5. So I need RMC119 and Arboretta2 at Gmail to get in touch with me so I can get some free stuff sent out to you, and then we'll do something else there as well. If you want to get in touch with us, get any of we put up some new listings last night. I need to do more, but one of the listings is another custom make it for me listing for the more advanced stuff, the liquid chrism core pendants, which I can make. We list like the different types of ones that we can make, that she helps me make them specifically for you. That's clumicreations.etsy.com. Anything else? Nope, this is going to be a long one, so we'll wrap it up from there. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.